You're wasting thousands of dollars every single day, and you might not even know why. It could be as simple as a nozzle. Stick with me. In the next 10 minutes, I will show you how to save money on labor, resources, diesel, media, and get that job done on time or ahead of schedule. There's so much to cover. No way I can possibly do it all justice, but we're going to try in a reasonable amount of time to cover half a dozen key points that everyone that blasts needs to know about nozzles. So stick with me. I'll cover each one of these before we're done. First of all, let's start with the entry. If you can't read my writing, I apologize. So we've got 1-inch entry and wide entry. The key here is to make sure that these match up to your hose. If we're using a 1 1/4 inch hose, which is the most common size ID, you want to have a wide entry or 1 1/4 inch entry. Makes sense. If you have a 1-inch entry or a narrow entry on a large hose, you're going to smash the grit right into here, into your seal, and you're going to just destroy your nozzle extra fast. So anyone that's selling you a 1-inch entry nozzle with 1 1/4 hose, they're not doing you any justice. You're going through way more nozzles than you need to. So step 1, make sure the entry matches the size of your hose. Next, let's talk about thread. And for us Americans, this is very confusing because it involves the metric system. There are 2 types of thread. Oh! There's 2 types of threads on every nozzle. It is either fine thread, which is 1 1/4 NPS, National Pipe Straight, by the way, but it's 1 1/4 pipe thread, and 50 millimeter metric. Easiest way to tell it, I always ask people, does it look like pipe threads or does it look like threads on a light bulb? These are your 2 threads that you're going to see out there in 99% of all the nozzles. So you just look for one of these because we're always going to ask, because we need to match the threads on your nozzle holder to the threads on your nozzle. Next, third thing, let's talk about size. Everyone's favorite topic. Why do I have so many different nozzles? Well, there's a lot of different things to blast, is the simple answer. The length of the nozzle, which is what everyone sees, is generally determined by the size of the hole, but not always true. This is a 3/16. This one's a 1/4 inch. Not really the same, but not used for the same thing either. Most important part of nozzles is we need to not use more air than your compressor puts out. So for example, if a 185 compressor puts out 185 CFMs, and we start with a number 4 nozzle right here, this is going to use 90 CFM. You might say, why don't I use more? Because before this nozzle wears out, it is going to be a 5/16. And that 5/16 board is now consuming 150 CFM. At that point, we still have to run an air supplied helmet, bleed off a little moisture in our system through a moisture trap. We are maxed out on our compressor. So we always allow a nozzle to start 1 size smaller than max, so we can allow for that wear. Once it wears 1/16 of an inch, 1/16, this is an important number, throw it away. It's costing you too much money. And let me show you why. Every nozzle that you start with has on the inside a Venturi where it necks down. This is important because the Venturi increases your velocity by 30%. Well, as I'm using my nozzle, what do you think is the first thing to wear out? Of course it is. It's this here. So I lose that and I go to this. Once that's gone, I now have what is called a straight bore nozzle. Straight bore nozzle is exactly what you would think it is. I have now lost my 30%. It's gone. So I'm lower 30%. And a big thing has happened here. My pattern has changed. The pattern on this nozzle has a normal, what we call, pattern. It's going to have a hot spot in the middle to do your cutting, and it's going to have a brush off area around the outside where we're hitting our pattern. So, cutting, brush off. This one just has our area in the center, just one little dot. So not only have I lost my 30% what does the cutting, I get a smaller pattern. I'm now also consuming more air. I'm consuming more media, and I'm getting less work done. So that $150 nozzle that you're trying to stretch extra life out of, it's costing you more than that every day to use it. This is the simplest, easiest tip I can tell any blaster to keep their system running at peak efficiency. Watch your nozzle. Once it gets 1/16 larger than what it starts as, throw it away, get rid of it. It is past its useful life and it's costing you money to run it. And I don't say that just because I sell nozzles. I say that because I want you to make money while you're doing this. Why do I have these super long nozzles? Well, if this is a straight bore nozzle and this is our long Venturi nozzle, this here is what we call in the industry a super stick. This would be the extra long Venturi. So, XL Venturi. Why do I have this? Well, it's an extra long Venturi. It's going to increase your velocity up to 60%. More speed, more cutting, more efficiency. Well, why doesn't everyone use this? Well, it is good for almost everything. Where it really excels is paint. When you're cutting and blasting any paint coating, especially tough paints like powder coat, this little baby, 25% faster all day over a standard long Venturi nozzle, just by doing nothing else but changing this. The only downsides, or why I wouldn't use it everywhere, it does hit a little harder. It does give you a little deeper profile. So if you're trying to minimize profile, this isn't the nozzle for you. Also, because of the extra long Venturi, it holds the pattern tighter, longer, farther. So I have to be able to step back an extra 2-3 feet from what I'm blasting. If I'm in a crowded, confined space and I can't get far enough away from what I'm blasting, it's not going to benefit me at all. And in fact, it might hurt me because now I'm acting more like a straight bore nozzle because I can't allow that pattern, that velocity, that fan to spread out and do its work. So tight confined spaces, not the best. Minimizing profile, not the best. Straight steel grit, long reaches, paint especially, this thing pays for itself in no time flat. The other style nozzle that we have would be a double Venturi. This is kind of the opposite of our long Venturi super stick. We're looking at just a nozzle here. It has our Venturi, but it has the holes here, as you will notice. And why does it have those? Well, the holes basically fluff out this hot spot. So instead of getting a hot spot that's cutting, creating extra heat, extra profile, it makes my whole entire blast pattern like this, nice and even. So where I don't want to put too much vintage, or I don't want to cut something, or I want to blast something cosmetically where I can see it all nice at the end, this is a nice little trick, your double Venturi. The other complement to this, which does cut a little bit more but sprays it out, is a fan nozzle. And I don't know if you can see this on the video, but at the end, it is a rectangle tip, just like a spray tip. And it does exactly like you'd think. It comes out of the end, and it blasts a pattern much like a broom, just like you would think of painting. So this, our stainless steel, blast to finish, cosmetic, this is big in our stainless industry for those people, especially newer workers that aren't as skilled, haven't had the years on the job. This makes their job so much easier for blending and finishing. So, number 4, let's talk about liners. Composite materials. There's silicon carbide, tungsten carbide, Cylon, Boron carbide, and a whole bunch of other exotic ones in between. Bottom line is, most of them just add life or durability to what you're doing. This happens to be a boron carbide nozzle. This one happens to be a silicon carbide. Boron carbide is 2 to 3 times the life. What is 2 to 3 times the life? Well, it really varies wildly depending on the media type, the size, the pressure, everything you're using. But this nozzle is boron carbide is almost triple the life of silicon carbide. Cylon and tungsten, here we go. I can tell tungsten right away. This little baby is heavy. You can't feel this, but this weighs about triple what this one does. Some people like weight at the end of the nozzle. It counterbalances the thrust. Other people want it light and mobile as possible. So we have 2 different liners designed for that. Tungsten carbide, fun fact, has gone through the roof recently. I don't recommend this very often anymore. Silicon carbide, silicon nitride, those types of nozzles have become much more cost effective and virtually the same life. Ceramic, these little guys, cheap, $6. Buy them everywhere, see them. Fine for hobbyists, things like that. It is a straight bore nozzle, so you're not getting your pattern, you're not getting your velocity increase, and they only last, less than a day if you're actually doing any blasting. So these are fine for your little garage guys. Great for that. Have them around so you don't overwork your compressor. You can change them out often, but in a production type setting, this is not the ideal nozzle. I would not recommend that. So number 5, let's talk about style of nozzles. This is where we get into the right nozzle for the job. Here, this happens to be a water injection nozzle. One of my favorite tools of the trade for someone that needs to wet blast once or twice a year. As we've said in other videos, I would never wet blast anything unless I absolutely had to. Well, this is one way you can. For about $500, you can hook a garden hose up to this, and now you're wet blasting. It injects the water right into the Venturi. The other types, specialty nozzles, we've got some for reducing sound. This is the Ninja. You can Google this and look at it. It is a hybrid between our standard long Venturi. This happens to be a number 4 nozzle, and you'll notice it's even longer than a number 6 standard one. But this is one of the quieter nozzles out there. So indoor blasting where you're trying to reduce decibels, it comes in sizes 4 through 7. Very handy for reducing. I do a video on it. We talk about specific decibels we reached. This one, coincidentally, is almost as quiet as this one, but you need the space to be able to use this or have the right application, as we mentioned earlier. We have fan nozzles. We have nozzles for people that used to like to use nozzles as hammers. This is our Sikwa nozzle. It is a silicon carbide liner with urethane around it and metal over the top. So they're using the urethane as a shock absorber, so in case people like to throw them, chuck them when they're done, it's more durable than anything. You pay a little bit more for it, but you know what? If your guys can't be delicate with them, which, let's be honest, that's most of us, this is a great value because it's a very durable nozzle. Here we talked about size and entry earlier. This happens to be a 1/2 inch entry. So this is for your cabinet guys. It's a medium Venturi nozzle. A way to step up from a straight bore nozzle in a cabinet, get your additional 30% velocity, where you can start gaining some production speed and efficiencies out of a cabinet by doing nothing more than stepping up from a straight bore to a Venturi nozzle. Double Venturis we covered, and of course the big boys, the extra long Venturis, the super sticks, hard hitting, coating removal, longer reaching, tougher blasting. Funny story about these, very first time we demoed them, going back 15 plus years now, was inside a rail car. Hopper bottom rail cars are 13 feet from floor to ceiling. They used to have to set up like some little scaffolding, which happened to be cinder blocks and 2x6s, that the guys stood on to reach that 13-foot top ceiling. Once we gave them the XL nozzle, super stick here, they now could blast the top of that ceiling without having to stand on sketchy boards and cinder blocks, just because it held the pattern tighter, longer, farther to do the job safer. It also helps with moving scaffolding or lifts a lot less on a job site where you're utilizing, reach and things like that. So to quickly recap, we went over these 5 things. Entry, make sure the back end hole in your nozzle matches the size of your blast hose. Thread size, 2 common types, 1.25" fine pipe thread, 50mm metric. By the way, this is the 50mm, this is the fine thread. Notice the difference. These suck. Why do they suck? Grit gets in here, they get bound up. Every time you put them on, you're not taking it off without a pipe wrench. Use these. You can change your nozzle by hand and actually check it to make sure that it's not worn out past the 1/16, which is what costs you all the money. Next, size. Size does matter. We have to size the nozzle to match your compressor. If we use more air than your compressor can put out, simply put, your pressure goes down. Every 1 PSI you go below 100, you lose 1.5% productivity. Very common to see 80 PSI blasting pressure at the nozzle. That's 30% slower all day than 100 PSI. Fourth, liner. Different liners are not all equal. What's inside the nozzle is what determines the life. For certain medias like garnet, aluminum oxide, you need boron carbide, harder liners. That will save you money despite the fact that the nozzle is double the purchase price. If you get 3 to 4 times the life, that's a good investment. Style. We have countless styles of nozzles. They give you different patterns, different reaches, different size, shape of pattern, all the above. The right pattern for the right job is important. Powder coat cutting, this bad boy wins every time. Stainless steel finishing, we need to talk about one of these two. Light auto body work, this one's amazing. Everyday get her done, fantastic nozzle, if it had coarse threads. So hopefully this has been informative. We've covered a few things, by no means everything. There's so much out there on nozzles. That is why there are 100 nozzles, because there's 100 different jobs. If you have any questions, please give us a call at ABS. Myself or anyone here on the team would be glad to go through the options with you and help you have a blast.